Hey guys, Nate back again with the Learn to Code channel. Today we're going to work on updating our income streams and expenses for our budget here. So far, what we've done is we built a front end in React and a back end API in Symfony, and we've saved a budget object to Doctrine in MySQL. So today what we're going to do is we've already got this budget set up where we can load a budget from the database with an ID. So budget ID 6 yields this budget here with our income, paycheck, and investment income. So now let's add some fields. Why don't we go ahead and make it so that we can add expenses first. So I'm going to open up WebStorm into our React component for the budget and take a look at the expenses here. So what we need to do is add some kind of input field. So I guess we could do input. If we take a look at how we did our input field earlier, we can kind of copy this. Input type text, state, new expense name. And I think we want a form around this. I think maybe put that in line. So I've got an input text, new expense name on change. We need to change new expense name. And we also want a submit button. Value create. We need to close that since it's React. Let's see how that looks. We're reloading. It doesn't like that. Can't read property bind of undefined. So we need to implement this method new expense name. So we're adding another item to our state here called new expense name. So we also need to go in the constructor here and set that to an empty string for its default value. So now we have this text field here where we can enter in a new expense. So we load up the budget ID. So now we have the state of what ID our budget has, and we have a text field here where we can create an expense. So now we want to send this to our API so that we can save our new expense, and then we want to render it as a line item here under expenses. So we're going to go in here and add an on submit just like we have here. So we're going to wrap this in a form if we can. I'm not sure if we can wrap a form around two table cells in React. Maybe we can. And on submit, we're going to create new expense. And we can create that function here. That function is going to get an event, which is the submit event. However, when we save, we're going to first prevent default here because we don't want the form submitting and refreshing that page. Then we're going to grab the new expense name from this dot state, and at this point we need to go and implement the API endpoint to accept new expenses. So let's jump over to our Symfony API, and let's just create a new controller here at the top. We'll call it add expense, and that's going to get a budget ID and an expense name and an amount, I guess. We forgot the amount on the front end. We're going to add that in a second. And let's just copy this doc block here. So what we want to do is budget expense. So now when we post to this route here, budget expense, we're going to add an expense to that budget. Budget add, maybe expense add. And this request body is going to contain the expense name and amount, but I think we'll put the ID, the budget ID, and the URL just like we did with the get budget endpoint. So let's take a look at how we can post or parse this, the body of this request. So request, does it have a body method? Let's just check out the Symfony docs. Parse post request. Symfony. Here we go. Interesting. Okay, so it looks like this is how we're going to get the body as a JSON or as an associative array. So let's go ahead and copy this. Don't know what that's doing there. So content, this get request. Really? Is that the way to do it? No. Surely, yeah. Okay. So we have our request here, and if there is a post body, then we're going to go ahead and say new expense is equal to that post body after we've JSON decoded it. So it's going to come in, get content is going to return a string representation of that expense, and it should be in JSON, so we're going to try and decode that, and then we will add it to the budget. So we need to load our budget, and we can see how we did that down here. So in the same fashion as our new add expense endpoint, we've got this budget ID here. So let's go ahead and copy this chunk of code. And now we want to call budget add. Okay, so we only have set expenses. So what we want to do is implement an add expense method that's going to take an expense, and this expenses add expense. That's all we should need to do to our budget class there. So let's add, I guess this is a new expense JSON. We need to create a new expense object with an amount and a name, it looks like. Yep, I think that's all we're gonna need. It's kind of odd that this actually takes a budget at all. I don't know that it needs to. I think we're gonna take that out of here and see if we can live without it. Okay, so we removed that. New expense JSON, and the format that we're going to send, it's probably going to have something like, it's going to be a JSON object that looks something like groceries, amount 100, probably that's a number. Maybe in cents though, like we've been doing. We'll see. So to create the new expense takes 2 arguments. So we want to do amount, and we want to do name as our second argument. So new expense JSON name, and we can take this, paste it into here, and at this point we have added our expense, to our budget, and now we just need to save it. We need to go to EM, and we need to call flush. If the budget didn't already exist, we would want to call EM persist with that budget object, because Doctrine needs to know that it's managing the budget. But since we're loading it from Doctrine already has this budget under management, and we just need to call entity manager flush to persist the changes to the database. So with that, I think our route is just about done. We need to return a success message. If all goes well, we are going to return our default success message of like a status success with the budget ID. And if we can't, if we don't, or are unable to parse the content here, or there's no request body, we'll just send back status error, message, no request body. Alright, so now we have a route called add expense that will add an expense to our budget. Let's go to the front end and implement this endpoint. So last time we were in this code base, we had just added a function here called create new expense, and now we have the API endpoint to actually push our expense up to our budget. So we're going to need to look at the documentation for request again and see how we do a post request. So npm request post. Let's go to the GitHub page. It looks like we can do this, except we want to do JSON data. Let's just do a request, npm request, post JSON data. Okay, so these are our options here. Cool. This looks like like it could be about right. So our options, we're going to send it as a post. I'll leave that. Body is going to be, we need something like name, groceries. For now, we're gonna make this dynamic in a second. An amount, $100. So let's take this bit of our fetch budget method, which has an example of how to use the request library. We've already done the work, so we might as well use it. And we're going to copy this URL and replace and put options there in its place. And we're going to put our URL here. Let's go back to the Symfony project and copy this format. So it's budget, expense, and then budget ID. And I think we've got this order a little backwards logically, so let's put the budget ID after budget. So now it's going to be budget 6, expense, and post as an HTTP method kind of means add. So we're adding an expense to budget ID 6. That makes a lot more sense. So let's copy this, paste it right here, and let's replace this Symfony syntax with JavaScript interpolation. We don't need that either. So this is the URL we want to hit. This actually needs to be our state budget ID. We need our active budget ID, which comes from the state. And we can put our new expense name here. But it looks like we forgot to add a new amount, so let's go and add another text field. So we need to add another column, and we want to add another text field. We'll call it new expense amount, and we need to add this to our initial state object as an empty string. It's going to be a number, not a string eventually, so we'll have to consider that. But anyways, now we just need to do some copying and pasting. We need to change new expense amount. So we're going to have to implement this quick function. Where did our... There we go. New expense amount. And now we can use our amount here. I think we're going to need JavaScript parse int. Really, it's going to be a float. It's going to be in dollars, so yeah, we just parse float before we send it up. We'll see if this works. I'm not sure if it will, but that's in dollars. Yeah. See what happens, huh? Let's just see if we can add an expense now. So let's load up our budget 6 and add a groceries expense. And I think, you know what, after get rid of that debugger. I think after we save our new expense, we should just reload the budget. We could just push the expense, yeah, because we need that expense ID for this to all work properly. So let's call let's create a helper function called load budget with ID, and what that will do interesting. Maybe we don't need to do that. Submit load budget. There we go. So what we've done is created a function that doesn't rely on an event that will reload the budget. So after we've saved our new expense, we'll just load the budget again. We don't need to resolve anything. Okay. We don't need this to be a promise either. Maybe we'll do this like this. Then response. Then we're gonna load the budget. I think we're going to need to do this so that load budget is in scope of here, because this, since this is an anonymous function here, a lambda, I think this is not going to be bound there. So now we should have load budget in scope here. Alright, so this is definitely questionable. We did a lot just now, so let's see where we're at. Hey, so yeah, we broke loading the budget, so that is less than ideal. That's because we forgot to change this to use our helper function that prevents the event default first. Alright, so we can load budgets again. Let's see if we can add groceries here. So didn't work the first time. We actually got an error, and let's find out what the issue is here. Looks like we didn't even send a request body, so the options request failed for some reason. Let's load our budget again. Clear our console here. Budget expense add, insert into expense 3. What is 3? Budget ID. So I think maybe we do need to construct the expense with a budget ID, unfortunately. I guess we probably do. Remember how we removed that budget from the constructor of the expense? I think we're going to need to re-add that. Gonna have to add it here as well. Oh, yeah, budget is here, isn't it? And we can see if that works better for us. Let's give that a shot. Let's see if we can copy this request as curl. Not seeing the request body there. Alright, let's give it another shot, guys. We've loaded up our budget. We're adding groceries, $100. And it's still not happy. We're not getting really good error logs, honestly. It does say, let's try and do insert. But then something goes wrong. Let's see if it did manage to insert that record. So we have groceries here. Okay. But for whatever reason, our something's just going very wrong, and it's dying kind of silently, which is weird. I mean, Chrome is kind of being strange right now. I think I've got a really old version of Chrome or something, because copying this as curl doesn't really give us anything. Let's see, gas. Gas bill's $10 a month. It says we're getting a response here, but there's no way. Where is it complaining? Body undefined. The error is failed to fetch. Whatever that means. Okay. Maybe we should try and create a request of our own and just see what, if we get an error message back at all. So we can take and we did this yesterday. Yeah, this is how we do it. So this is a really simple request, so we'll just do this manually. But budget 6 expense is our route, and all we need to do is send up a name, and that name could be electric, and the amount could be 140. And see, we got a success message and the budget, and it returned the response that we wanted. So something's wonky with, I think, our browser. Honestly, it's kind of weird that we see the post here, but when we copy this, it's an options request. Let's see, options. Maybe we should open an incognito window and try this. Whoops, not butter chicken. 6. So we have electric, we have water. To create that, yeah, it's gonna complain. So That is pretty odd that this is complaining. Maybe we should throw a debugger here and see what's going on. Maybe this gets called for the options request that asks what kind of request methods we can send pre-flight. Dog food 10. So we got a debugger breakpoint there. So break. Oh, I was sticking in the wrong place. I did. I'll get rid of that actually. Where is the add expense? Right here. What else do we have? This is all. We only get an error, a response, or a body. That's a little undesirable. Running out of expenses here, guys. Auto insurance, $100. Let's see. So it says failed to fetch. What does that mean? It's just a string, or it's just a type error. It just has a string. We're going to look up this error because I don't really know. No course, the request header guarantees that no response will. Non-standard header will trigger. Something is up, but maybe we don't need this flag here. I don't know what that flag did, so we're going to remove it for now. See if that helps us. I'm just going to put something here. Argument error, options body, set content link. So, having some technical difficulties here. Don't like these JavaScript packages. Let's go look at the docs. npm request. Is there like a .post method? Form data. What does form data look like here? Buffers. Method put URI. Maybe this body needs to be JSON stringify. Maybe we need to send it as a string. Let's see how that works out. Because the backend is definitely getting our request and it's processing it correctly. I just don't see we have A there. post object literal npm request. Maybe we need to include the header, I don't know. Form data. That's not what we want though. Maybe we will post it as form data. I don't know. I guess that's not the worst thing that we could do. Maybe if that's how this recommends we do it, we'll just go for it. Key value. Yeah, we're gonna just do this. We're gonna change the way our backend processes this route around our crappy request library. So we're going to use this new simpler format, I guess, which is good. Our URI is right here. And our form is right there. So now instead of posting the JSON, we're going to actually make it look like we're posting from an HTML form, I believe. I think that's the idea here. Then the third is the callback, I guess. Third argument is this callback. Let's make it less horrible to look at. Alright, so we're going to give this a go. We're going to need to change things on the back. Process post request Symfony, because we're not processing JSON anymore, unfortunately. Get and post variables respectively. So this looks like this is going to be post. How we get a post variable. So let's go back and change our endpoint here. All we need to do is change the way we get the amount and the name. So we don't need to process that anymore. What we want to do is amount equals amount. Otherwise 0. And name is going to equal an empty string by default. So now we can just replace our old associative array queries with these. And let's see how it goes. I don't know. I'm really not a fan of this request library, but it is better than Popsicle, which we tried to use before and totally got blown out. Alright, hey, look at that. So we at least got a successful response back. However, load budget not in scope anymore. I think is what was going on, right? Cannot read property state of undefined. And that is right here. So I think that's, again, I think we might need to bind this. I think that's what it's going for. Load budget. So now this is going to be the this and load budget, theoretically. So load budget, if we take a look, is function with this. Alright, there we go. So now it's reloaded our budget. If you take a look, we can add E here, E5, and it automatically reloads. So now all we need to do is clear our new budget form. So we can create a function maybe called clear new budget or new expense form. And all that's going to do is this set state, right? New expense amount is going to be our default value of 0 or of empty string actually, and our new expense name will also be an empty string, and we want to call that right here in our success handler of this request. Maybe we are getting a little too low level doing all this stuff ourselves. I'm pretty sure React has some libraries that does form input for us, so that we can, if we don't have to handle setting the state every time a user does a keystroke in one of these input fields. I don't know. Maybe we'll try that in a later segment. Anyway, let's see if our field clears itself now. Let's disable breakpoints. Get the feel of it. So if we wanted to add an expense, let's say laundry detergent, we're getting really granular here, and that we spend $20 a month on. See, we can now save it, and it clears out our field, so we can pretty easily go and add a couple more. Laundry detergent, cat food. Cat doesn't get to eat very well. We're a dog family. Water. Now we already have water. TV 120. So you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and implement the income portion of this. It's going to be exactly the same with the exception of adding the frequency fields. We did a lot of debugging today trying to figure out what was going on with that request library. It's too bad that that ended up happening. I'm not really sure, what the deal was. I guess we should have just read the docs and used the request library the way it said we should, and we shouldn't have tried to just post JSON as a string. But that's okay. We learned our mistake. We will not mess with that request library again. anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you learned something. Definitely subscribe if you like the video and you want to see more. I'm thinking about doing a lot of these. Next time, I think we'll probably make this look a little better. It's still really basic HTML, just a simple table. I think we can take it to the next level with some CSS and make this actually look like something that people would use. Anyways, thanks for watching again, guys. Subscribe below. Take care.